Welcome back to the fourth and final segment here on Cal's Corner Radio Show on the X Zone Broadcast Network. Once again, my name is Kal Korff and I'm your host. The executive producer of the show is Rob McConnell. Boy, this one went by really fast. All right, as we wind this down here, there is a method to my madness, as always. I am, again, one of the four original Roswell researchers. So what I'm going to do is break this down as to why this is relevant to all the wonderful work that even John Greenwald is doing at the Black Vault, Tim McMillan and others. They're trying to get to the truth. God bless them for it. And they should be commended and supported for doing that. Now, here's why all of this is important. If Roswell really happened anywhere near the scenario that everybody from Richard Dolan to Kevin Randall to others have claimed and written about and have earned a living from in part, let's be blunt, then think about it. An alien spaceship crashes on Earth, lands in the USA, of course over the July 4th weekend because aliens are patriotic, they love America. And what happened is what? The remains were found. Let's say alien bodies weren't found. It was some sort of unmanned alien spacecraft. Well, right there, it would give whole new meaning to the phrase, Houston, we have a problem. Meaning, the U.S. government would, of course, cover it up, as they should. Meaning, they need to find out, okay, if they got here, they're a threat because we just started jet propulsion thanks to capturing Nazi technology and winning World War II. Otherwise, Hitler would have had it all. And we have atomic bombs. What are we going to do? Nuke aliens? We don't know. If something from another planet got here, and it was more than just a meteorite, and even meteorites can be a problem, just ask the dinosaurs, what happens is the whole government would have to be reconstructed in a way where it would deal with this. Now, it would do it in one of two ways. There would be a secret reorganization, which means the public wouldn't know about it. And of course, if there was, this was a Cold War, it was just starting, Stalin and Russia were working on the nuclear bomb. They had not developed it yet. And that's why Mogul was created and launched. It was done under the umbrella New York University Balloon Project. It wasn't called Let's Go Spy on Stalin Project. And Professor Moore made it very clear that he didn't even know the name of his own project. That's how classified it was. And there are people saying, well, there was a reference to Mogul here, so it wasn't really classified. That's nonsense. It had an official rating of A1, equal to the Manhattan Project of World War II. And if anybody thinks nobody knew that we were working on an atomic bomb, even though they may not have known it was called the Manhattan Project and that it took most of the energy that the U.S. would output to do the R&D that we would generate as a nation. There were, of course, some leaks. In fact, there had to be because that's how Russia found out about the Manhattan Project and were able to spy on it because they learned about it. So the argument that, well, Mogul wasn't really, that secret because we know about it and there was some reference to it back then, that is a straw man argument that is just completely irrelevant. The fact is it remained classified. It was classified for decades. And the government, being the U.S. government, didn't hold a press conference and say, oh, by the way, remember that flying disc that the Roswell Army Airfield announced because they had an eager beaver PR officer named Walter Haut, who, of course, changed the story before he died and suddenly talked about seeing aliens so he could make some money and leave his kids something when he died. That's what really happened, folks. That was us. No, they didn't do that because they don't care. You see, the government does not bend over backwards to say, oh, remember when we lied to you about this? Well, here's the documents proving we lied. Please forgive us, folks. They don't do that. Instead, it's kicking and screaming. You have to pry documents out of them. And of course, they quit using the letters UFO in government documents many years ago because they figured out that if they use other words, then they can, with a straight face, say, nope, we searched records for UFOs and we don't find any references to them. Sorry, no response, no responsive, match. Well, that's because you're looking for the wrong thing. So we have unidentified aerial phenomenon. We have unidentified aerial objects. We have unknown phenomenon. But as we know from decades of watching this, and I know this because I've followed this for years, I was involved in the early stuff in the 70s to get the first documents out of the CIA. In fact, I was in high school when I first started a formal relationship with the CIA, and we got off on the wrong foot, and it's my fault. To this day, if that letter ever surfaces, and I hope it will, I called them every name in the book, used the F word a lot, and because the CIA denied to me to give me their whole case file on the Miami 1952 Ralph Mayer film that was taken in July that showed an object going by about 7,500 miles an hour. And there was no known object that could go at that speed. And this was a reporter who filmed it on the top of the roof of his TV station. It was seen by a lot of people. And they said they didn't have any such records. So I wrote him a blistering foul-mouthed letter, teenage arrogance and all, but I had it backed up factually. And I told him, I not only know you have it, I've got 5 frames from this film, and I know the name of the agent from the CIA, you guys, who handled this case. Well, about a month goes by, I hear nothing. I'm actually thinking maybe I'm going to be arrested or whatever, because the letter was probably the most angry one I'd ever written to them. I held nothing back. I got a very polite letter from the CIA about, I don't know, 4 or 6 weeks later, and they agreed to give me a couple of the files, but not all of them. Well, decades later, I now know why. Because it was a classified missile launch that we did off the coast of Florida. Didn't tell Walter Cronkite it was going on. So everyone reported a UFO. UFO does mean unidentified flying object. And in this case, this missile went about 7,500 miles an hour, faster than anything made at the time. And it was classified. So that case was solved. Another case that was solved was the famous NSA memo that Stanton Friedman used to hold up that was all blacked out and say, see, they're covering this up. Well, yeah, they were. But what were they covering up? Well, you'd never know from Stanton Friedman. It was Phil Klass, a mutual acquaintance and friend of ours, who later, many years later, submitted a request to have the documents Friedman would hold up and complain that there was a cosmic Watergate going on. He had them declassified, unredacted, and what they were covering up, which Friedman didn't really talk about, was listening stations and intelligence gathering sources around the world. And if that had been revealed, it would have put those agents and those assets in danger. So yeah, they blacked it out. There were no dead aliens, no dead alien bodies. And that's what I keep coming back to. Because when I walked away from the UFO field in 2000, after my book, The Roswell UFO Crash, What They Don't Want You to Know, which exposes all the claims in the top 22 books that were ever written on the subject by all the researchers, including Friedman, I learned when I started getting involved with the Israelis in counterintelligence and counterterrorism work, working as an analyst, and as it's now becoming publicly aware, maybe soon officially in court documents that will be released, an intelligence officer, I was shocked to see that Mossad doesn't spend any time on UFOs. And I'm like, wow, they're the bad guys. I mean, badass guys. Nobody is better than Mossad. They are the bomb on intelligence. And if their spies aren't stealing the Roswell files and sneaking off slides of alien autopsies or spending any time on UFOs at all, well, there must not really be something to spend time on. Think about that, because there's no way Mossad would not be all over it. It would be impossible to have scientists reverse engineer anything in physics, medicine, chemistry, all that stuff without coming across Jews, because they dominate the Nobel Prizes in the physical sciences, medical sciences. Come on, this is Israel. They have more Silicon Valley startups than Silicon Valley itself does, just in Tel Aviv. Do the math. But it's not there. So all these people are trying to get to the cosmic Watergate. Riddle me this, and this is why this is the last chapter in the upcoming Annie Jacobson expose book that I've written with Rob McConnell. Real history matters. If Roswell didn't happen, it doesn't matter what Annie Jacobson says that Mengele and Stalin supposedly did about Roswell, because it never happened. Secondly, why is Mossad not interested in UFOs? Why? Well, I've had that view that until Mossad cares, I'm not going to either. I'm not going to spend my time looking for alien visitors. What I do is I investigate cases and I try to separate fact from fiction. And I'm releasing a bunch of stuff now that has been hidden in archives for decades. Some of it, we thought the material was lost, but it's coming out. And it destroys a lot of the major cases. And this can be verified. It will all be on Google so that in the near future, starting this year, the year of 2020, seeing clearly, right? Good metaphor. People are going to Google, and in the top 10 for once, you'll find out the truth about Meyer instead of only what Mikey Horn says. You'll find out the truth about Roswell instead of only what Richard Dolan is hyping. It's all going to be there, chapter and verse. I held an event called Real Disclosure, because it's real disclosure, folks. Late last year, October 19th, last year, said these cases are going to be taken down. I showed these graphs. I sent hundreds of these slides from the presentation to other people of shows like Steve Cambian. I sent them to Erica Lukes from UFO Confidential. It's coming out there, folks, and there's no way to put this genie back in the bottle. And no, a lot of this stuff isn't on Google. It's on there now, starting to, because I've bothered to post it, because it needs to come out. So I support the work of John Greenwald, of Macmillan. Let's get to the truth of all that stuff. But people need to focus on why Mossad doesn't give a rip about UFOs, because that is a showstopper. All right, we'll be back next week for another episode. Thanks for joining me. I'm Kal Korff.